Please the court, counsel, members of the jury. His name was George Perry Floyd Jr., and he was born on October 14, 1973 in Fayetteville, North Carolina. To his parents, George Floyd Sr. and Larcinia Jones Floyd, Sissy, the matriarch. Now, you met George Floyd's brother, Philonis, and you heard all about Sissy Floyd. She was George Floyd's mom. She was the mom of the house. She was the mom of the neighborhood. And you heard about the special bond that she and George Floyd shared during his life. You heard about their relationship, how he would always take time, special attention to be with his mother, how he would still cuddle with her in the fetal position. You heard that. And from George Floyd's brother, you learned all about George's childhood. And during his time growing up in that house, George Floyd was surrounded by people he knew, people who knew him, people he recognized, a familiar face to pick out in the crowd. People need that. George Floyd was surrounded by people he cared about and who cared about him throughout his life, throughout his childhood in that house, through his adolescence, into his adulthood. On May 25, 2020, George Floyd died, face down on the pavement, right on 38th and Chicago in Minneapolis. Nine minutes and 29 seconds. 9 minutes and 29 seconds. During this time, George Floyd struggled, desperate to breathe, to make enough room in his chest to breathe. But the force was too much. He was trapped. He was trapped with the unyielding pavement underneath him, as unyielding as the men who held him down, pushing him. A knee to the neck, a knee to the back, twisting his fingers, holding his legs for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, the defendant's weight on him. The lungs in his chest unable to expand because there wasn't enough room to breathe. George Floyd tried. He pushed his bare shoulder against the pavement to lift himself, to give his chest, to give his lungs enough room in his chest to breathe, with the pavement tearing into his bare skin. As he desperately pushed with his knuckles to make space so he'd have room to breathe, the pavement lacerating his knuckles. The defendant stayed on top of him for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. So desperate to breathe, he pushed with his face, to lift himself, to open his chest, to give his lungs room to breathe. The pavement tearing into his skin, George Floyd losing strength. Not superhuman strength. There was no superhuman strength that day. There's no superhuman strength because there's no such thing as a superhuman. Those exist in comic books. And 38th in Chicago is a very real place. Not superhumans, only humans. Just a human, just a man, lying on the pavement, being pressed upon, desperately crying out. A grown man crying out for his mother. A human being. And in that time and in that place, while he was surrounded in life by people he knew him, faces he could pick out, there was no one there he knew. He was surrounded by strangers. Strangers, all of them. 9 minutes and 29 seconds. He's surrounded by strangers, not a familiar face to say his final words. But he did say them to someone. He said them to someone who he did not know by name, but he knew him from the uniform he wore and the badge he wore. And he called him Mr. Officer. That's what he called him, Mr. Officer. Mr. Officer would help, would call the police when we need help. And he pleaded with Mr. Officer. George Floyd's final words on May 25, 2020 were, "Please, I can't breathe." And he said those words to Mr. Officer. He said those words to the defendant. He asked for help with his very last breath. But Mr. Officer did not help. The defendant did not help. He stayed on top of him, continued to push him down, to grind his knees, to twist his hand, to twist his fingers into the handcuffs that bound him, looking at him, staring down at times the horrified bystanders who had gathered and watched this unfold. The motto of the Minneapolis Police Department is to protect with courage and to serve with compassion. But George Floyd was not a threat to anyone. He wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He wasn't trying to do anything to anyone. Facing George Floyd that day, that did not require 1 ounce of courage, and none was shown on that day. No courage was required. All that was required was a little compassion. And none was shown on that day. George Floyd said, "I'm not trying to win." This was a call about a counterfeit $20 bill. All that was required was some compassion. Humans need that. People need that. But more fundamental than that, and more practical at that time, in that place, what George Floyd needed was some oxygen. That's what he needed. He needed to breathe. Because people need that. Humans need that. To breathe. And he said that. And the defendant heard him say that. Over and over. He heard him, but he just didn't listen. He continued to push him down, to grind into him, to shimmy, to twist his hand for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. He begged, George Floyd begged until he could speak no more, and the defendant continued this assault. When he was unable to speak, the defendant continued. When he was unable to breathe, the defendant continued beyond the point that he had a pulse. Beyond the point that he had a pulse, the defendant continued this assault. 9 minutes and 29 seconds. When the ambulance arrived, the ambulance was here, and the defendant continued. He stayed on top of him. He would not get up. He would not let up. He stayed on him, grinding into him, continuing to twist his fingers, to hold him down. He had no pulse. He was not breathing. He was not responsive, and the defendant had to know what was right beneath him. Right beneath him. You saw the video. You saw the point when the ambulance arrived, and finally, after a paramedic got out, and the defendant still did not get up, and the paramedic tapped him, and finally the defendant got up, and they lifted Mr. Floyd onto that gurney, and you saw the way he was not, there was nothing there. His head had to be held to prevent it from falling to the ground.
All right, everybody, welcome to TSO. What you were just listening to were the closing remarks of the George Floyd case, and that was his lawyer giving basically a synopsis of what happened with George Floyd, his history, and the whole situation. I thought it would be important for us to show that. It is a very powerful video. If you're not aware of what's happening throughout that trial, you can go on YouTube. That video is off of YouTube, but you can go there and you can watch it. And it's always good to keep yourself informed of that. So I know you're probably like, wow, Maya, welcome back, and then you guys start off like this, but this is what's happening in our world right now. Okay. We're at a time where, this officer whose motto, I wrote down the motto: protect with courage and serve with compassion. That's a huge motto.
It's a nice motto.
I'm sorry?
It's a nice motto.
It is a nice motto. It is a nice motto when it is followed through.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not where we're at. So we have a jam-packed show for you guys for today. We're going to be talking about, of course, the George Floyd case. We're also going to be talking about gun violence in and around our world. We just had the shooting of Dante Wright from an air freshener being hung from his window. That's why he was pulled over. So we have a lot of things that we're going to talk about and we're going to address. So we're just going to dive right in. Hajir, Justin, Arya, welcome back. I missed you guys. I'm sorry, Hajir, that made you cry. I'm so sorry. But I love you.
Oh, it's unfortunately really real, and we can't avoid it.
We can't hear you, Hajir.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Well, we still can't hear you. She might have to click off or click back on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
I said I have nothing to say.
Yeah.
It is a tough world that we're living in right now, and a lot of people turn that blind eye and they don't want to see or understand what is happening, but it's important for us to grow and progress, for us to see it and know what's happening. This is what's happening today. Those closing remarks happened 5 hours ago.
Oh, you mean this wasn't 1905?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
No, this is today, 2021, April the 19th. Okay, this is where we're at in this time period, and you would think that we would have evolved. We've been through Eric Garner, we've been through Sandra Bland, we've been through so many people have lost their lives in the same manner. Now we have Dante Wright in the same category, and we go through this all over again. I think that we should have. When did they say that the I can't even talk. What is the word? Deliberations will be over tomorrow, I believe. So we will know tomorrow. And let me just tell you, Minneapolis is about to blow up.
Yeah, and they say, even Joe Biden was saying we don't want property destruction, protest peacefully. But I mean, it's
property destruction. That's all they're worried about.
That's all. That's their first worry for sure, and that should tell you something as well.
Who said that, Biden?
Well, not directly, but that was his gist. And he's, be peaceful and don't, riot and all the things, they say. And
Then
of
be
course,
enforce justice
Absolutely. And
if you
hold people
want if you want
hold
peace.
absolutely and hold people accountable for their actions. I mean, gun violence has been going on in our country for forever. Okay, and it's played a huge part. It's part of movies. It's a part of music. It's a part of video games. It's a part of TV commercials. They have normalized it for us because we see it every day.
and I think maybe get into it a little later, but it's always interesting to take a look back at the historical um, origin of it. And we've been doing that a lot on Reach Out, which you can see every Saturday, 1:30 on our channel, Reach Out. But it's our conclusion, what we just keep coming to is it's just based in how the country was founded.
Right.
We came here and we pushed, and that's a kind word for it, Native Americans from their land. We engaged in whole scale slaughter. And then we continue this policy of occupying control even throughout when the white settlers were going through.
Right.
And like that's where a lot of the origin of our law enforcement today has come from.
Right.
And especially, even talking about the Second Amendment, the advent of that was to protect the ability of slave patrols to capture runaway slaves. So all these origins of law enforcement in this country and of just gun violence, I mean, that's kind of been our attitude from the start. And also being set against each other too. Like we've been set against each other from the very start because
Right.
you can't have people of the same economic class or the same, standing to join together and to find common ground. That's who you have to set against each other. And I think we're
Right.
certainly seeing that.
Right. And too often, we're put into this category where we have the same repeat over and over and over and over again. And now we have this situation with Dante Wright, okay? A young man that was shot from hanging a air freshener. I have 3 air fresheners hanging from my rear view mirror. I have 3 of them, okay? And I never knew that it was a law here in Pennsylvania that you couldn't hang any kind of things from your rear view mirror. I wasn't aware of that. Just growing up, you always see them, and that's what you do to make your car smell great. But him actually losing his life because the officer on accident pulled out a taser instead of a gun.
Hold up.
Other way.
I meant
Hold
pulled out
on.
Other
Do
way
you
a
hear
around.
me?
taser. I'm sorry.
Do
That
you
was
do
Yeah.
you hear me?
Yeah. Go
Yes.
Do
ahead.
you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Their taser is yellow.
Absolutely. And there's a weight
Is
difference.
Like
black.
a third of the weight.
So no, don't. Huh?
It's a third of the weight too. And they purposely
It's a
always keep
what?
a third of the weight at least. And then
Yeah.
they purposely keep them on different sides. I was talking with Bill about this
Yeah.
the other day. Like you always keep your taser on your weak hand. So she knew. She
Right.
absolutely knew this was not a mistake.
Well, 26 years of experience of training other officers, you would believe that she would know the difference, okay?
No, she does.
26 years. 26, not 2, not 3, but 26 years of you are in law enforcement and training others and accidentally pulling out a weapon.
Because it's not. Also, training officers was Derek Chauvin. He was a training officer. So was the dude in the officer in Cleveland who shot Tamir Rice. They
Yeah.
were all training officers. So many of them are.
Right. So this is the problem that we're having. This is what we need to get to the root of the problem and uncover exactly, Hajir, on one of your shows, or maybe it was our show, one of our shows that you were on that we all did or we saw together. On one of your shows, you talked about the mental health assessment for officers,
Mhm.
and I think it was the officer that you actually had on your show, and it's so skipped over. Like it's not in depth. It's not an in depth, thing that they do to uncover if you have mental health problems or if you have, feelings about people of color or different things like that. Me, I don't believe it was an accident. I will never believe it's an accident.
None
This
of
has
it
happened
was an
too many times.
accident.
It's happened too many times, and I absolutely think 100% that she needs to be held accountable. And that is the discussion. This is what really bothers me.
The
This is the
question, is she
discussion.
going to be held accountable?
Absolutely
Nope.
not. No. No.
Nope. And that's, if you remember, you and Justin, our very first, like your very first shows, um, Justin spoke about the corrupt prison system.
Yep.
That was what, 2016 or something, 17 maybe,
Yep.
2014.
or too
Oh
old.
no, 2016. No, you're right. I wasn't here.
2014. Oh my
2014.
Yeah.
God.
At that time, I know at that show, I personally said the same thing. I said 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 about the mental health assessment. About if someone is buying a house, you jump through hoops. If you're buying a car, you get
Absolutely.
vetted way more than someone goes to get his gun. I
Absolutely.
mean, we got so many laws that um, um, Eugene DeBascal did something in here in central Pennsylvania. And I think John Fetterman, who's going to be on my show, by the way, Lieutenant John Fetterman on Thursday, did something about those laws, but it's not enough. You can go and get a gun like now.
Absolutely. Yep.
And
And
that's
we talked about this before. I'm sorry, Aria. Go ahead.
no, you're fine. I was just gonna say that's so interesting because I've spoken about this with my parents about like proposing having gun owners insurance. Like you said, if you're gonna buy a house, you have to have homeowners insurance. If you have a pool at said house, then your insurance is higher because it's more reliability.
Yeah.
Same with cars. Like, why are those same things not applied? At least insurance for guns, and that's at the very like the short end of gun control that I believe. But it's insane, like you said, that you can be able to just purchase a gun or any sort of military grade firearm or purchase parts to create that gun or 3D print parts to make
Right.
a functioning gun. All of these things, it's way too accessible and it needs to stop.
Right.
The box of bullets, it actually like what, $1?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think.
I know.
look it up right now.
Bullets are quite expensive. They've actually
No, they're not.
I think doubled.
You can go to
doubled in price in the last year. They're like a $1 a piece at this point.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, they were like $1, even if it's $1 a piece. You can really take someone's life if you have $1 in your pocket. I don't think it should be
for sure. And
You
I
can
guess I
get-
wish there was a cheaper option to, go and practice, because if you're going to have a gun, you should, know how to use it safely. So that would be good, but absolutely.
On this website, you can get 50 rounds for 44 mag. I hope I'm saying this right. Cartridge for $3.99
Per
Yeah,
round, I can
that-
almost guarantee.
That's
That's what I was
50
telling
rounds.
you.
50
Yeah.
rounds.
And I seen it, and I went to the mall one day. That was like a few years ago, and I was so curious. Yeah, I wanted to know, and I looked at a box, and it was $1.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked it again, and I said, maybe it's in the wrong place. I asked the guy, and he said, yeah, that's the price. I remember that like left a taste in my like not just mouth, from saying it, but in my mind too, like thinking that you could kill 50 people for it was $2 back then. You said now it's $3. But
Right. And that's for 50 rounds.
yeah. So
That's
not
big.
just that area, the insurance is very important, for that training, like Justin said. Go through an extensive medical training. And I said, as a nurse, when I applied to the clinicals, I had to do physical exam. I had to do assessments. You had to do FBI, criminal background, child abuse, PB. I mean, we had to go through extensive checkup before and training during.
Right.
And I never in my life had thought that one of my patient, I need to kill them, choke them, or restrain them because they were combative or they were hitting me or spitting. I mean, any nurse can tell you we dealt with all of that, and especially if you work in the psych where you face so many abuse, but you know that they're doing it for a reason. Some of them are not mentally able.
Right.
Some of them are just, medication can make you act like that, and some of them are A H. I can't say the whole world in your the whole word in your show, but some of them are just basically A-holes. And you know what? I still don't feel like I need to kill him. I would
Right.
just step away if I'm mad, and the same treatment that and the same expectation that I expected from nurses as a nurse. I'll say that, and I know doctors will say the same. Engineers, even if you apply for a clerk,
Right.
you're expected to treat your customer.
Absolutely.
No one, if someone came and abused you as a front desk, receptionist, you're not going to feel like you're going to get that gun out and shoot them.
Right.
No one does that. So why the ones that held the power and held the guns are not trained
Right.
to act appropriately?
It's a
Why
different
are they
standard.
allowed to do
I
things that
mean,
my child won't do?
we're
Like,
we're talking about training, and I think it'd be interesting to speak parallel with policing because that's our kind of parallel topic today. Um, police in America are some of the least trained police in the world. They require
yeah.
some of the least training. I think it's 18 months at the most in the police academy. Other countries, at minimum, a 4-year term, like a
Mhm.
bachelor's degree, which isn't even all that much when you have someone's life and death in your hands. Not to mention, in many of the other countries, they don't even give them guns. I mean, in England, they don't use guns. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. On
The
the
whole
website.
institution of policing
I'm sorry.
really needs reform, and I think it can also go back to the training they receive, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But it is pretty. I think it's a good thing, the regulations that I think Biden's trying to enact, that you at least can't 3D print guns. That's something, right? But there's a lot more. Like, you can go to the gun show loophole. You can go buy a gun the same day. Just get it without any kind of background check. It's too easy.
And it's been this easy for a long time. But on the website, golawenforcement.com, you guys can go on there and, read up on the different exams or things that they need. But on this website, it says the duration of training in the police academy varies for different agencies. It usually takes about 13 to 19 weeks on average. On
Gee.
average. That is not enough training. If your motto is going to be to protect with courage and serve with compassion, then you should be doing more intensive background, mental health, uh, even looking at people's what is that? What's that thing called? People's genealogies and things like that. Maybe I'm using the wrong word, but people's histories and family trees, like that
Abuse,
stuff trickles down.
violence. Mhm.
Absolutely, it trickles down, and people can have that smile on their face every day, but have that heart of bitterness and evil. And some of these things are taught, and some of these things are carried down through bloodlines. You just have hatred. Hatred just grows. It keeps reproducing. So those things I feel like need to be put in action. If not, then we're always going to be in a situation where we have to stay silent all the time, that we can't talk about what's happening in and around our communities. We can't talk about our police officers killing our young kids, killing our brothers, our husbands, our friends. We can't have these types of conversations, and we're always going to be marching and holding up signs and saying their names and going through this same cycle. It just has to stop. It just has to. And now it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter where you're from or what color your skin is. Like, you are going to be affected regardless. The shooting of the young girl, the 7-year-old girl, and her father's in critical condition. I believe he's still in critical condition. 7 years old at McDonald's, shot, her life is taken due to gun violence. But here we sit, well, not us, because we're talking about it, but we have people who sit and just change the channel.
And
Change the
that's why
channel.
systemic reform is necessary, because it's not a few bad apples. I hate that. I hate
Right.
that so much. And even if that argument were to be valid, let's entertain that for a moment. The good apples aren't saying anything or doing anything, so they're inherently bad apples as well. So it's not a few bad apples. Like,
Right.
this is the problem. This is why we need systemic reform, because, like you said, some of it is taught, and some of it is passed down generationally. Some of it is covert racism that then manifests itself as overt racism, and that's why these young Black men are being killed. Because this reminds me, I'm not even sure if I've spoken about this on this show before. One year I was in junior high school. I forget what grade I was in, but I was with the police officer for career day, and he was speaking about his career, and I asked him about police brutality and his opinion on the Black Lives Matter movement, etc., and all that. And he said just something that was extremely racist, extremely dismissive, extremely. It speaks to the how much covert racism is normalized in society, because he talked about how, these officers that are getting painted as the bad guys, these officers that are committing acts of police brutality are good guys, and they go home to their wife and their children, and they're good guys, and they do good things, and it's just the media that wants you to think that they're not, and it's just the media that wants you to think that they're all racist, and you were probably raised to think that too, you little Black girl. He didn't say that explicitly, but that's what he was implying. And it was so astounding, even as a junior high schooler who really didn't know how to use my voice in the way that I did now. I just remember being so perplexed and so like, of course, I'm hoping that they're good people to their wife and their kids, right? Like, I'm hoping to your neighbors you're a nice guy, but that's not the point. You don't have to have a KKK hood on and run around killing and lynching Black people to be racist. You don't have to be the one putting young Latinx kids in cages to be racist. That's not the problem. There are little small acts that I've always talked about: clutching your purse when a Black person walks by, seeing a Black person as a police officer and inherently seeing them as a threat and killing them. That you are inherently racist. You may have never said the N-word. You may have never ever done anything overtly racist in your life, but you are 100% a racist person. And that's the problem. That's why systemic reform is necessary. It's not an option.
Right.
I mean, unfortunately, the current system really benefits those in power and those in wealth and influence. I completely agree.
Absolutely.
But so many people are vested in the current system that makes reform so difficult. And I don't know. Like, when you were saying that, like the bad apples, I'm like, maybe, if not trimming the tree, I don't know, maybe not chop it down. I don't know. That's what came to mind. But that's a whole thing. Maybe we just trim it a little bit. Cut all the branches off. Sorry, I don't mean to foment revolt on
If the
TSO
tree,
Live.
if the tree, if the tree is
dead,
infested,
I mean,
I'll say cut it and put a new seed.
hey, but I mean, all through the training, through the principles you need to join the force. We talked about on Saturday the prevalent type of police training, certainly in Hennepin County, called killology, and I think we even talked about it on here before. The idea, like, shoot first, ask questions later, that
Yeah.
lethal weapon style of policing. And I thought of it before, but I didn't mention it. There are more troops National Guard troops in Hennepin County now than there are U.S. National Guard troops in Afghanistan. There are 4,500 National Guard troops in Hennepin County right now, awaiting the verdict. So there's that.
And Justin, I would even say like it goes beyond just the training, right? Like I've spoken about this before. The way that we speak about history in school is like, yeah, bad things happened, but
Yeah.
you know, like we gloss over it. We gloss over the slaughtering of Native American and indigenous people. We gloss over enslavement. We dehumanize enslaved people. We all of this, like just little things. And I'm not saying expose, you know, kindergartners to the heinous crimes and acts of historical generations of all of that. Like I'm not at all saying that, but I'm saying even in my AP history classes now, as I'm finishing high school, we still have that like blanket cover of like everything's okay. So inherently, when you have that in your mind and these inherently racist things have been taught to you for your entire educational system, and now you're going off to police school and you've been around white people and you think that black people are inherently dangerous, like it's so much deeper than just like the surface that I believe, honestly.
Get over it. That's what they say.
Yep.
Get over it. It's been 300 years. Get over it. I
Your
mean,
ancestors were
It's so
captured
funny
on
that
a
you
ship
said
and
that.
brought to the country. Get over it.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone was lynched. That was like 60 years ago. Get over it.
Yeah.
The picture that I'm going to show you guys, there were over 3,000 comments on this photo that I'm about to pull up. And out of those comments, all you heard was people like, get over it.
Yeah.
You're just adding all these things together and make it seem like it's a bigger issue than what it already is.
You
This
know the
photo right here.
funny thing,
Yep.
not just get over it, but recently when people are start to see things as they truly are, with what we were taught during history, trying to talk and take down shows that are racist or shows that, I'm sorry, you can put it back again when finish this,
Oh
but
no, you're fine.
one friend, she texted me and she said, I am over this cancel culture. I said, what? Cancel culture? So you think people lives is canceled culture?
Right.
You think when people say don't show images of slavery, don't allow kids to read books that are promoting, everything that you said, Aria, teaching them that it is normal to clench when they see a black person,
Right.
to do this when they see an Asian person, like when they took Dr. Seuss or whatever. And you know what? If my child, the songs from my childhood, if they were promoting, and most of them are promoting all this, and now people are waking up, opening their eyes, and saying, no, enough. We can't continue teaching our kids the
Absolutely.
same. People were crying over this more than they cried seeing the picture of George Floyd being.
Yep, for sure. And I always find it funny that the people complaining about cancel culture now have tried to cancel culture about 20,000 things in the last 40 years, such as D&D. Cancel culture back in the 70s. Yeah. I was going somewhere with that, but I lost it. Just
Yeah, you went there. You said
come back to me.
something about
no,
this
I
cancel
did.
culture.
Also.
I heard about the cancel culture when The Bachelor went off, because of that whole thing with The Bachelor and them on like plantation or used
Yeah.
to be plantation.
When people start talking about how the person who was doing the Elmo character, he was a child molester. That's not something we need to laugh about, and
Right.
he got punished. They're like, oh, Elmo is from our childhood. Blah, blah, blah. Come on now, seriously? Like, that doesn't mean we are going to shut up and you're telling the victims it's okay for them to
Right.
sit there, listen to his voice over and over and over, and
Right.
knowing that this person is succeeding, who molested children. So if you think this is cancel culture, please cancel yourself from my life, because I don't have time for this.
Right.
So
This is the
people-
silent culture. Everybody wants to be quiet and silent and breeze over it and put that shiny, glossy finish on it to make it look pretty. And that's the problem that we have. That every single day. My dad always tells me all the time, you just wake up and automatically see the world through rose-colored glasses. Which
Yeah.
is not true, Dad, if you're watching right now, which I know you are. I'm not watching through rose-colored glasses, but in our history, in our life, that's what we are taught to see.
Mhm.
That everything's gonna be fine. You're gonna go to school, you're gonna graduate, you're gonna get money, married, you're gonna have kids, you can go, things are gonna happen, you're gonna be fine. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. But in order for things to change, in order for, George Floyd to have, what's the word? What's the word, Justin? To have.
Restore justice.
Yeah, in order for him to have justice.
Oh wow, that was a good one. I had no idea.
Yeah, in order for him to have justice, Dante Wright, all these other people, we have to hold people accountable, and we cannot continue to live in a world where we're just going to be silent all the time.
When you played the closing argument earlier, it's just like I when he said that, what got me when he said George Floyd was all he needed, or something in that, all he needed was oxygen.
Yep.
It's
and everybody
like
needs
it brought.
Yep.
If I am traumatized like that with it up to this point, I don't know how his family, the people who were watching, everybody else who has a young, like your parent area, I'm sure they feel type of when you leave the home and when you drive, if you drive, or that's the way I feel when Malaz is not here, when she goes to college. Every night I'm just thinking, will she be okay walking from her class? Will she be? I mean, no one should feel this way. And for us to sit there and just think of the 9 minute, and I know we did a protest a while ago, and we went to downtown and we kneeled and like the main front street. Of course, many people came, and cars passing, beeping, and then of course you hear the fu and blah blah blah.
Right.
Still in the area,
Mhm.
we kneeled for the whole 9 minutes and 46 second, I believe. But to think, just imagine, like, put yourself, wear that mask. You don't even have to like have someone choke you. Don't do that, please. Wear the mask in and wear it, and try to hold your breath for a second and see how that feels. And just multiply that by 9 minutes, 46 seconds, 8 minutes, 46 seconds, and put yourself in his place. I don't think we will ever get to be okay. And then you see them, like you see this young 20 years old. So many people were writing under his, like the news when it came out. Oh, he had a warrant for his arrest. Would that make it okay for someone to just shoot him? He wasn't acting violently. He wasn't doing anything, even if he had a warrant for his arrest. That does not give anyone the right to shoot him. So I don't think we will ever be okay. I know I won't be okay.
I'm not to be overly dramatic, but I'm not quite sure what okay is at this point. Uh-oh, I think Maya dropped. Maybe not, but no, I don't really know. And whatever okay is going to be, it's going to have to be something we find on the other end, and it would have to be through that restorative justice and that transformation. But that's a long way away, and that's a hard road from here.
On another note, Justin, since you guys were following the Sudanese revolution closely, they just discovered, you know how we had so many missing people? They discovered 2 containers full of young people's body in Sudan. And I had to report this. I had to report on this a couple days ago. And it just bring you to like, what can we do? Like, I feel at this point, I feel hopeless. That's I can lay it this way. Close to a couple thousand bodies stacked up, and the only reason people knew about it is they lost electricity power, and the smell start to come out. Those are the revolutionists. Those are the young people who fought to get rid of the corrupt system to end up in another corrupt system. So it is dark here.
Really,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
well,
I don't mean to make you.
no, I'm really sorry, Hajir. That is horrific. And I know at the time that was what we thought might be the case, but until you know, it's not the same. And then when you do, oh my gosh, that's absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
But
To say.
and I don't give. Let me just preface this by saying, like, I'm not here to give this advice. Like, this is not the advice of me, or certainly not of TSO. Let me just start by saying that many of the significant achievements in America, and I would say around the world, came through protest,
Yeah.
and not always peaceful protest.
Yeah.
Sometimes when that property damage happened, that's when things actually changed. I'm not advocating this. I'll just preface that. I'll just preface that for everything I'm about to say. I don't advocate any of this, but that's how change happened. When you have such an entrenched and powerful force in place who won't even like give an inch. I think that's what also blows my mind. That if you have this situation of like power and influence, like, you don't even like give an inch or like a little bit. You don't even say, okay, well, we'll compromise on this and this and this and bring some semblance of a civil society where people can cooperate and communicate. No, there's not even that. When your opposition is so entrenched and unwilling to move, what else do you do?
Right. And one thing I would like to say, and this is something that I've just been repeating over and over again, especially as tensions are beginning to rise, and hopefully the verdict is one that is serving George Floyd justice, to the extent that we can. But there's obviously a chance that that doesn't happen. And something that I always advise my friends, especially my white friends, is that it's not non-Black people's place to tell Black people what the most advantageous thing is. And so, Justin, like, this is not towards you. Everything you said, I completely agree with. This is just to people who are watching. If you're not Black, do not go on your social media. Don't find yourself like, well, actually, I believe the best thing to do in this situation is, because it's not really your place. And I think it's important for those people to recognize that it's time to take a step back. For one, again, I'm not, like Justin said, I completely agree. I'm not condoning rioting. I'm not saying everyone go riot, let's go riot. But at the same time, again, just mirroring with Justin, everything that he said, like, it's important for, if you're not a Black person, do not find it within yourself to put yourself in a place that is not for you at this time.
And if you're in that place of protest, I'd also say, like, follow their lead. Like, be their ally, be their backup. Put yourself in between police and them, because it really does make a difference, sadly.
It does. And that it's you say that, Justin, and I just think about that picture of that young lady last year during the protesting who put herself in between them and the police.
Yep.
It's a powerful statement, and for everybody who is watching and everybody who is going to watch this show, it is important for us to educate one another and talk about these things, because if we do not, then they will continue to be put in the background, and we will always be in this situation where we have the latest right now, Dante Wright. That is Dante Wright and his 1-year-old son in this photo here, where we'll have this situation where we lose our young people at such a young age to where they don't get the chance to bring forth that change or bring forth something that's greater than what they already have. We have to be better than what we're doing right now. We shouldn't be having shows like this where we have to talk about people who lose their lives to something that can be, that
If we wanted it, they'd be gone. If that's what we really wanted, this would be.
right.
This
This would be
he's
gone.
just a kid.
Yeah.
He's just a child. He's a kid, 20 years old, and his son is 1 year old, and his son is going to grow up without a father. And then there's that ripple effect. There's that ripple effect of children who do not have fathers in their lives, or what will he become now because now he has this stigma on him that he doesn't have a father. Like this, these are the things that carry on, and they carry on through generations.
I'd also
So-
like to speak just momentarily, because we're almost out of time, on Adam Toledo. That one really struck me the most. And I don't mean to downplay these at all, but man, 13 years old, he's putting his hands up. Some people said he was throwing away a gun. I don't necessarily believe that. Regardless, he didn't have a gun in his hand. What are you doing? You just assassinated a 13-year-old.
We got to do better, guys. If nobody else is going to talk about it, then you need to get up and go on social media and talk about it. Bring awareness to your friends and your family, the people who don't want to watch the news because it's too sad, or they don't care because it's not happening to nobody in their family. These are the people that we have to impact and talk about it with.
Mhm.
Let's not continue to have these cycles. And I really hope that everybody takes some time for themselves, either the rest of this evening, because tomorrow when this verdict comes through, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be heartbroken, angry, and all we can do is hope for the best.
I was just hoping that the juror will find it in them to see this as truly is a murder. I'm not hopeful,
I'm not either.
but
I
and
watched
I
the whole
think,
thing, Hajir. There's
huh?
They
I
sowed
said I
doubt.
watched
They
the whole
sowed
thing.
doubt the whole
It's open.
time. Like they kept just trying to sow seeds of doubt.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's, as much as I want it to happen, it's not.
We'll see.
We will
We'll
see.
see.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight on the TSO Live Talk Show. Please don't forget that everybody here on the show has a show. So please go tune into the Hajir Talk Show. Every single day she has a show, and she has awesome guests on there. Go on there on Facebook, the Hajir Talk Show. Or if you're friends with her on Facebook, make sure you go on there, like, and leave a comment on there, okay? Don't forget, Justin has Reach Out every Saturday. You can go on the Facebook page. You can also watch previous episodes of his show on Facebook, and I believe on YouTube.
Some of them.
Okay, Hijers are on YouTube as well. And also, don't forget our lovely Aria with the Fimbolden podcast. Please support all the hosts that are on this show. Everybody is doing something that's impacting in and around their communities, and we want to make sure that we are encouraging one another, okay? So, between the Hijer Talk Show, Reach Out, and the Fimbolden podcast, y'all should know everything that's happening in the world, okay? Literally, okay? So we love you
That's
guys.
a bold claim, but
We love you guys and we appreciate you. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. I forgot to say that in the beginning, but it's never too late to like, share, and comment and send to all your friends, because if you don't, I kind of already did, but do it again. Okay. So I love you guys. Thank you, Hajir, Justin, and Aria. We will see you guys next Monday, same time, 6 o'clock. You guys have a good night.
right.